Immediately, he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. When evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. About the 4th watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them. When they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. And they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. This is a very well-known passage by many in our culture. Often it is remembered as Jesus walking on water. However, I do want to be more specific in that it says that he walked on the sea. You may be thinking this is just semantics, but there is a reason behind it. While this is not the video for discussing the thematic usage of waters throughout the biblical text, a brief summary is necessary. In the video discussing Jesus calming the storm, it was mentioned that the use of waters in the biblical text points to a beautiful source of life, but also as chaos. It is something that man has no control over, but God does. This was shown with Jesus calming the storm and how he did not need to call upon God to silence it like Moses would. But instead, he spoke and it was so, much like Genesis 1. With that in mind, we also want to turn to Job 9:8. What is interesting here is that the ESV, based on Hebrew, renders it, "Who alone stretched out the heavens and trampled the waves of the sea." The Hebrew word here is dorach, in which can more fully be understood as to tread, bend the bow, press, etc. In fact, according to the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, the first definition it provides is to tread with and to bend the bow by firmly planting the foot in the middle of it. The Greek Septuagint confirms this understanding in that it reads, "Who stretched out the heavens alone and walks about upon the sea as upon the ground." If the English is not convincing for you, then maybe the Greek will, in that the word for walk used here is peripeton, which means, according to the Greek-English lexicon of the New Testament, to walk along or around. But who is this passage referring to? Chapter 9 is part of Job's discourse with his 3 friends, in which he responds in verse 2. "In truth, I know that it is this way, for how can there be a righteous mortal before the Lord? For if one wished to contend with him, he would listen to him, so that he would not answer to one request of his out of 1,000. Verses 4 through 8 then carry on this response from Job, in which he articulates the kind of power and knowledge that Yahweh has. Returning to Mark, this is an interesting parallel to Job in that only God is able to walk on the sea. When we see Peter doing so as well, we also see him sinking when he stops having faith, which implies that Peter was trusting in God to hold him up, while Jesus was doing this on his own. However, to tie this point back in with the chaos element, Michael Heiser states, "Sea imagery conveys these ideas from the very beginning of the Bible. The water of the primeval deep of Genesis 1-2 must be calmed and restrained by God. The defeat of the gods of Egypt happens when the sea obeys its maker in Exodus 14. Jesus walks on the sea and instantly brings it into submission. To the ancient mind, these incidents symbolize power over chaos and everything that might bring harm and death to humanity. Absence of chaos meant that everything was in perfect divine order and calm. Jesus steps onto the sea, showing once again his dominance over chaos. He steps on it like it is nothing to him because he is in control. Jesus is not merely performing a miracle for kicks to catch up to the group. A theological point is being made. Jesus has control over the chaos waters. He steps onto it and walks. The only one who is able to do such a thing in the Hebrew text prior to his arrival is God.